toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location, Hesselson's, Elmira Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry: Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, King Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. Always envisioned with a Culligan water softener. Revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water fine you love of a long-lasting clean.
Hey, this is John's Tree Service. We are locally owned and insured and rated A+ for Better Business Bureau. John's Tree Service, your source for all your tree needs, where customer satisfaction is our guarantee. Give us a call today. Hey, 607-377-6510.
Don't miss this MLB season's New York Mets games. Big Fox and Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games for free on WJKP. No extra subscriptions needed. Watch live over the air. Brought to you by MLB games. Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games for free on WJKP. No extra subscriptions needed. Watch
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a very busy morning, and so we're going to talk a lot about the New York State budget, and boy, do we have a special treat during the Steuben County Office for the Aging interview. We are pre-recorded, but we will be talking quickly with none other than former Senate candidate, Heisman Trophy winner, Herschel Walker will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. That was such a blast yesterday at the Kyle Petty charity ride across America. We're going to tell you all about it. Got a couple pictures from it. And as I said, we'll be talking with Herschel Walker in the 7 o'clock hour. So do not miss that. I did ask him an off-topic question. What that means is, and you're not really supposed to do it, but you should be asking him about the charity, which I did, of course, because it's an amazing charity. But I also happened to get a chance to ask him something maybe a little off-kilter. But first off, oh, by the way, a big Wyoming wave. I forgot to add that right at the beginning of the program. Got a wave all the way from Wyoming. Thank you for watching. Let's go to some viewer comments from after the program yesterday. It would be interesting to see what the viewers, and of course yours truly, meaning me, believe President Trump's big announcement will be in the next few days. That's a great question. It would have been a great question to ask on the program yesterday, because it looks as if now it is going to be the major trade agreement with, quote, big and highly respected Britain, according to a report from the New York Times. Now, the New York Times did cite 3 people familiar with the plan, but it is still the New York Times, so take it with a grain of salt. The agreement would be the first one the Trump administration has struck with a foreign nation since the president announced his sweeping tariffs. Details of the agreement were not immediately made available, and the White House did not respond for comment. But what he had said yesterday on Truth Social is big news conference tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The Oval Office concerning a major trade deal with representatives of a big and highly respected country, the first of many. So that will be today at 10 a.m. So that's most likely, but I will still pose the question, what do you think the big announcement could be? Because it may not be that. You never know with the Trump White House. You never know what that will be. Another comment from a different viewer, of course. This is Tanya. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is Tanya from Gibson. Hi. Good to hear from you. Carney is out of his mind. Yes, Carney, the Prime Minister from Canada, making, I don't know. Some people thought that They tried to make that into kind of that Oval Office meeting into a Zelensky-Trump moment. It wasn't that at all. I thought it was a pretty fair conversation back and forth. I thought both were respectful. Well, both made their points very clear. So, but thank you. Thank you to all of our viewers from Gibson. Thank you, Tanya, for writing in. Comment, I'm so glad I got this comment this morning from Scott. I actually had made a note because yesterday at the Kyle Petty charity ride across America, I had a great conversation with a viewer, frankly speaking, a viewer that sends in comments occasionally, Scott. And he had this to say. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. This is Scott. I talked to you yesterday at the Victory Junction rally. I went to see Kyle and Richard Petty. But the highlight of the day was talking with you. Scott, that same for me. You made my day. We had a great conversation. So nice that you came up, and what a blast that whole event was. Talking to people to watch, frankly speaking, but to see Richard Petty, who looked great, to talk with Kyle Petty, who was so kind and thanked me personally for the interview that we had, I think it was last week. And as I said, Herschel Walker. If you went, I'd love to have you send pictures in. Because the celebrities were so accessible. I've never seen anything quite like it. But what a crowd, too. I wonder how, if you were at the end of the line, I wonder how late you were there. But if you went, please feel free to comment to that number on the bottom of the screen. But continuing with what Scott had to say, love your show and thank you for giving us both sides of a story. Thank you, Scott. Also, P.S., Looks like the Harry S. Truman should becoming a no-fly zone. Yes, I would agree with that. That's getting a very expensive ship, isn't it? Thank you, Scott. Again, it was a pleasure meeting you and having a great conversation. Thank you for coming over and saying hi. We've got a couple updates here on, well, let's get right to it. I don't have to highlight, well, though we are going to talk about the New York State budget. We do have quite a few things here about the Trump administration, but the first couple segments will be updates from the last few programs. And this, you could say, for the last, maybe the whole length of the time we've been on the air, unfortunately. Dozens of anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, anti-American rabble-rousers, if you will, protested inside Columbia University's Butler Library. They were hauled out by the NYPD on Wednesday, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio vowed to review the visa status of the pro-Hamas thugs, as he called them. Now, it's kind of an interesting look into the mindset of someone that's college age. Now, keep in mind, this is very much supported by the faculty in some instances. But let's put those aside. Let's talk about the students themselves. Not seeing the forest for the trees. The leaders of Columbia, who just cut, 180 staff members due to the cuts in funding by the Trump administration, 180 staffers. Now, they're thinking, please stop doing this. Whatever your beliefs are, please stop doing this because it looks horrible and it's going to cost us a fortune. But they're looking at it like it's mommy and daddy's credit card, that money isn't going to go away, that there's no kind of consequences for their actions in this. So Columbia is really, and I'm not giving them any sympathy. They originally started encouraging this when the encampments began last year. Did nothing about it, let it grow. And really, the original president of Columbia that got fired because the faculty and staff were mad at her for calling in the police. Not for letting the anti-Semitic protests grow, but for calling the police on an illegal encampment. Well, now Columbia is saying we don't want to lose any more funding, so they did call the NYPD. Around 80 agitators were taken into custody yesterday evening as the Ivy League school faced another chaotic day on campus. And in this scuffle, in this anti-Semitic protest, at least a pair of school safety officers were injured. Now, a video that the New York Post obtained showed a line of protesters led out in zip ties by NYPD officers and into waiting police buses. Secretary of State, one of many titles, Marco Rubio said, "We are reviewing the visa status of the trespassers and vandals who took over Columbia University's library. Pro-Hamas thugs are no longer welcome in our great nation." Now, the mob of demonstrators initially shoved past a security guard at the library's front entrance, disrupting students who were attempting to gear up for final exams. And that was another problem with the original encampments, too. All this disruption right near the final exams. Affecting graduation, if you recall, last year, and really another attempt to intimidate Jewish students on campus and the whole campus community. As they're trying to study in the library, they enter the library to disrupt, to distract. Once they pushed past that security guard, they draped large signs over bookshelves, one declaring the library a, quote, liberated zone, and another bearing the name of Bashar al-Araj, a Palestinian activist killed by Israel Defense Forces in a 2017 raid in the West Bank, though they should have spent a little more time in the library because they misspelled his first name as Basil, B-A-S-E-L. The raucous demonstrators then donned those headscarves and beat drums while clapping to chants of free, free Palestine. So imagine you're in a library where you get shushed, and rightfully so for even talking. Now you've got drums beating in the background and people chanting free, free Palestine. Probably not going to help in your studies. Photos obtained by the New York Post show protesters defacing the library walls, hanging Palestinian flags, and marking tables with colored tape. Other images show about half a dozen security guards forming a line opposite a much larger group of protesters. Protesters scrawled, "Columbia will burn," on a glass case inside the library. So you see that violent rhetoric, that dangerous rhetoric. Public safety, this is Middle East Studies major Eden Yadger, posting on Twitter, public safety is currently clearing out all other rooms on the lower floor of Butler Library. Why are the protesters able to continue disrupting the basic functions of our university while all other students have to pay the consequences? Yes, this shows that Columbia, and the same thing happened at Harvard and Cornell, that they, that the faculty, the staff, the administration, they support the anti-Semitic protesters over the safety, the well-being of the Jewish community, but also there are other students who do not want to participate in these anti-Semitic protests. An international student who was studying in Butler Library when the protest broke out described the chaos, saying somebody hung up a flag, posters, stickers, people were scribbling on the wall, dancing on the tables, singing, chanting like, I don't know, Free Palestine, the classics, said the young woman. Yes, that's one thing that has not improved since the 60s protests. And I do not compare these protests to the anti-Vietnam War protests as the media so often wants to do. I don't, but if you go back then with the chants and the sit-ins and the things like that, nothing changes, especially the chants. Never really that many good chants, is there? The entire ordeal lasted around 5 hours. Acting Columbia President Claire Shipman ripped into the protesters, stating disruption would not be tolerated. She also said she had no choice but to call the NYPD for help. At least 2 public safety officers were injured by the mob surge in the library, and officials believe some of the demonstrators were not affiliated with the elite school. This is what Shipman had to say in her statement. Requesting the presence of the NYPD is not the outcome we wanted, but it was absolutely necessary to secure the safety of our community. Disruption to our academic activities will not be tolerated, and are violations of our rules and policies. This is especially unacceptable while our students study and prepare for final exams. Columbia strongly condemns violence on our campus, anti-Semitism, and all forms of hate and discrimination, some of which we witnessed today. At one point, protesters wanted to leave the library willingly, but were not allowed to by school safety officials without showing their IDs, according to the international students. Mayor Eric Adams said in a statement that the NYPD was sent to Columbia at the request of school officials to remove people who were trespassing. He made clear, leading up to the arrest, that the city would never tolerate lawlessness. And I think some people would say, since when? But Adams did say to Jewish New Yorkers, especially the students at Columbia, who feel threatened or unsafe attending class because of these events, know that your mayor stands with you and will always work to keep you safe. To parents of students protesting, call your children and make clear that breaking the law is wrong and they should exit the building immediately. To those protesting on campus who did not attend Columbia, exit the campus immediately or you will be arrested. Jewish Community Relations Counsel Mark Traeger said it is unsafe, unbelievable, and unacceptable to have fully masked strangers barging into learning institutions. This is not normal under any circumstances. Some members of the school community gave kudos to Columbia and the NYPD for their swift action. Invading a library to disrupt exam studying is not peaceful protest, said one student group. And of course, what is very typical, they were wearing the masks to try to cover their identity because they know exactly what they're doing. In that way, that's not for the fear of COVID. But again, very, I think, important and strong words coming from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. We are reviewing the visa status of the trespassers and vandals who took over Columbia University's library. Pro-Hamas thugs are no longer welcome in our great nation. So again, taking over the library at a time when students want to study for their final exams. Again, wearing the masks, attempting to intimidate, bully the Jewish community and the community, the Columbia community in general. So there is your update. We have a couple other updates, a Greenland update as well. But I wanted to pass that along to you because obviously these college campuses, especially as the weather breaks, we can look to more protests like this because the students don't see this as a problem. They don't care about their university in that way. They care about being the center of attention. They care about getting that photo that they can post on their social media showing that they care the most in their anti-Semitism, if that makes sense. That's their mind. They want to prove that they're the most anti-Semitic, so that means that they're the most, for lack of a better term, woke. Because that, for some reason, and we had that great piece a long time ago talking about how the anti-Semitism has become a staple of woke, and it's Van Jones specifically, who I quote so often, saying the Democrat Party itself is marbled with anti-Semitism. So they want to get that photo, pat themselves on the back, get as many likes and clicks as possible, show that they are the most anti-Semitic. That's what this is all about, not the future, let's say, of Columbia University or the fiscal health of Columbia University when it comes to federal funding. That does not matter to them one bit. So there's your update. Run a little bit late. We are going wave heavy this morning, 6:15 on this Thursday morning, and we're already up to 10 waves. Keep them coming in. Keep the comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When you think Hesselsons. Hesselsons has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselsons, Myra Heights. Hesselsons has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselsons has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselsons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsons.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Hey, this is John with John's Tree Service. We are locally owned and insured and rated A+ with the Better Business Bureau. John's Tree Service, your source for all your tree needs, where customer satisfaction is our guarantee. Give us a call today at 607-377-6513.
Don't miss this MLB season's New York Mets games. Big Fox and Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games for free on WJKP. No extra subscriptions needed. Watch live over the air. Brought to you by Big.
As we overlook historic Market Street from the Frankly Speaking roof cam, we thank Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We've got a couple comments coming up in just a moment. Don't forget, today is Victory Day for World War II. Trump announced that, I believe, last week in executive order. Well, today is Victory Day for World War II. As Trump said, we're going to start celebrating our victories again as a country. A couple other things on tomorrow's program. We're going to talk with Justin Eberlin. He is running for Steuben County Legislature. That is the district that encompasses Caton, Hornby, and the town of Corning. So if you are in those areas or you know someone in those areas, please spread the word. We had his opponent on, Jen Mullen, last week. So that is a primary race, but we'll be talking with Justin Eberlin tomorrow. Then next week, for all of our friends in Irwin, please pass along the word. We are going to have kind of Irwin week, if you will. A different guest Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from running, because there's a three-way primary, running for Steuben County Legislature. So, again, that is next week. I'll get you all the details a little bit later on. Okay, let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. These college students that protest against Israel and America should all be deported. If you don't like it here or the United States, leave it. Don't try to change our country. Yeah, this is an example of really these protests, kind of that woke culture where it became sadly, the cool thing to do, to be anti-Israel and anti-American and anti-police. And that's why I'm glad Marco Rubio is saying, you know what? Enough's enough. Enough with these pro-Hamas thugs. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. After recently discovering the salaries of the management staff in the local school districts, I had to do a little online research. If Hochul's salary is $250,000, she'll be wanting a raise when she sees that school superintendents, what they are paid, that they are paid the same. These salaries are unsustainable. How do we fix this? That is the, well, unfortunately, multi-million-dollar question. I don't have an answer because the problem is if you look at the cuts, and this is not just in Corning Painted Post or Horseheads or elsewhere, the cuts that are proposed are never about administration. They're always about, of course, at first they're to scare you. So it's we're going to have to get rid of after-school activities. We're going to have to get rid of security, security, but resource officers, also known as security, elementary schools. I mean, they give you the scare tactics. And I see that there must be quite a bit of concern, at least in the Corning Painted Post School District, because I've seen signs up around the community. This was a tactic that they used years ago too. Now I shouldn't say tactic, but it was always vote yes for the kids. When so many people on this program have astutely commented that it's not the kids that we want to suffer. It's not, everybody supports the kids having the best experience and the best education that they can possibly get. But why is there so much money, and why are there so many administrators? That is where so much of the concern comes from, as far as I can tell from the viewers. I'm not speaking for everybody, of course, but I have seen the signs returning, kind of flashing back to probably, 20 years ago, when that was the big campaign rally that they always used to vote yes for the kids. But again, no one who is making the argument that this budget is bloated is going against the kids. I think that's, to keep using a phrase I use all the time now, that is not being said in good faith. I think that is disingenuous to suggest that if you vote no for the budget, that you're somehow doing it to hurt kids. And it's never been a favorite campaign slogan of mine. I'll put it that way. I've always thought that was pretty almost low, if you will. And I think the people who have concerns when they see the amount of money being spent in the budget, or the money being proposed in the budget, that doesn't mean, if they're concerned, that it's to suggest that they hate kids. I think it's quite the opposite. They're looking at the waste. They're looking at it from a Doge, if you will, standpoint, that we need a Doge in there. So what is the fix? I don't know. Someone argued, turn down the budget, but at some point it goes to the contingency budget, which is still, I think, a 3% tax increase, so it's still very expensive. But then that's when they'll really talk about all the ways it's hurting kids. Now, I know, I point to Corning Painted Post, but we've also had people comment on Horseheads. I just point to Corning Painted Post because, obviously, I'm in that area a little bit more, and people are coming up to me and saying, well, why, if they need all this money, why are they redoing the middle school football field? Why? There's these things that you say in a time of need, in a time when you're wanting such a raise, is it maybe also time to tighten the proverbial belt a little bit and say, hey, maybe we don't need some of these investments. Maybe it's time to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not some of these other avenues of spending. Okay, I see that we have other comments come in. We'll get to those in just a moment. We got a couple quick updates, but I've got to take a break again already. This is coming from the Washington Post. The U.S. is stepping up its intelligence gathering efforts regarding Greenland, drawing America's spying apparatus into President Trump's campaign to take over the island. Now, I wouldn't put too much belief in this. There's only 2 people that they interviewed that are quote unquote familiar with the effort. But this makes for a great headline. We have another headline that you're going to get a kick out of. They're almost trying to make this scandalous. Several high-ranking officials under Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard issued a collection emphasis message to intelligence agencies last week. They were directed to learn more about Greenland's independence movement and attitudes on American resource extraction on the island. The classified message asked agencies, whose tools include surveillance satellites, communication intercepts, and spies on the ground, to identify people in Greenland and Denmark who support U.S. objectives for the island. I know we try to give you Greenland updates as much as possible, but again, take that with a very big grain of salt coming from the Washington Post. All right, a couple other updates when we come back. Rushing through that, I promise you we're going to get to the New York State budget because we learned a lot yesterday, along with the lawmakers who are voting on it already. Yes, voting on it already. Some of the votes coming in yesterday. It's kind of a convoluted system. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's the 2025 Cardboard Boat Regatta. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025.
In a world of rising prices, Nissan is lowering them on our two most popular SUVs. The always adventure-ready Pathfinder and our best-selling Rogue, a Consumer Guide Best Buy 11 years in a row. From our U.S. factories to your driveway since 1983. Now get 3.9% APR for 60 months on Rogue, one of 6 Nissan vehicles with starting MSRP under $30,000.
Seneca offers you breathtaking views, gorgeous waterfalls, award-winning wine, and so much more. Your experience awaits you. Come experience Seneca Lake.
Get yours at Current Power Sports in Pine City, New York and Wellsboro, Pennsylvania.
National Nurses Week is great because it highlights and reminds us of all the good work that we do.
As nurses, we work as a team and we work together.
We all come together, we all work as a team.
Thanks for being a team. We all work together.
I think what I'd like to say most to my colleagues is thank you.
The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. News.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. We're having a blast. A lot of comments, a lot of waves. Let's go right back to comments. First up, seeing as though all the protesters at Columbia are being fingerprinted, can't wait to see how many of them are associated with Antifa. It's interesting because I never know how to handle this. I think, at least at first with Columbia, the message was clear. They wanted to blame it all on outside agitators. And I do believe, of course, there are outside agitators. There's groups making a lot of money off of these protests, these anti-Semitic protests. But I think, and this is not to you, the viewer, I think we all do a disservice if we just assume they're all outside agitators. There are these students who are very much supportive of the anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests. So yes, it's a mix, and I would be curious to know how many are with Antifa, because it is very reminiscent of the tactics of Antifa. But I also believe there are groups of students that actually have these anti-Semitic beliefs that are probably being taught by former Antifa, being taught by people that have been on the ground in these violent anti-Semitic protests. So you raise a very good point. It'll be interesting to find out the background of these people. Comment from Ken. Good morning, Ken. It's a good thing that Columbia is at least pretending to crack down on violent protesters and that they are being arrested by the police. But to affect real change, there needs to be consequences. I would bet that while they were arrested, there will be little or no charges, real prosecution, or convictions for any of their actions. They may, at the worst, get a small fine that either the organizers or mommy and daddy will pay. Nothing will change except the university will get its taxpayer funding because they are trying to clamp down on protesters. I couldn't agree more, Ken. That's one of the reasons why these have continued to grow, especially when it came to the encampments, because students saw it as a party. I mean, basically it was you get out of class, and instead of a party of listening to music, they yelled horrible anti-Semitic things and then played music. They looked at it as almost a camping experience, and they knew at the end of the day they were going to get in no real trouble. Now, I will say I think one of the unintended consequences that some will have to pay for is the lack of credibility of their diplomas. Now, some of them don't mind. Like we had that one student, who I think it might have been the one that was on a hunger strike, and we never heard how that ended up. But the person was so upset that the war hadn't ended between Israel and Hamas because that person's stomach was growling. Remember that? It was, I'm getting really hungry. This war has to end. Thinking that they were going to listen. That's how egotistical, narcissistic they are. Thinking that the Middle East was going to look at one student, and I think that was at Columbia, one student who was going on a hunger strike and said, we've got to end this thing because her tummy hurts. I mean, it was really kind of, at that point, the poster child for what was wrong with these movements. So she, and I think it was her, but it may have been one of the other protesters, who their degree was like 19th century socialist poetry or something like that. So those people don't care. Their degree is essentially worthless. They have, honestly, if they do that, they're signing up for a lifetime of protests. That's really what that kind of degree entails. That they're happy living a life of protest. But there are going to be people, unfortunately, that weren't even involved in these pro-Hamas protests, that they're going to go to an employer. I know I've said this numerous times on the program, but they're going to go to an employer and say, hey, you know, we just graduated. I'd love to work for your organization, your company. And they're going to see Columbia or Harvard and say, I don't know if I want to take the time and the effort to research to see if I'm going to find pro-Hamas statements or pictures from these protests of this student. So yes, Harvard and Columbia and the Ivy Leagues are still going to have some level of credibility, but that credibility is waning by the day. So I think that is one of the punishments that they'll receive, especially if it's on their record that they did get a fine for these anti-Semitic protests. But you're right, when it comes to the present, if you will, these people have to have more consequences than just a fine that they're not going to pay, because they get to, when they're out, imagine that welcome home party. They can act as if they were the most aggrieved, they were in jail, or they were fingerprinted, and everybody will throw a party for them, and they're going to be the coolest kid on campus. So there's to them, the pros outweigh the cons. But if they had real consequences like suspension, booting from college, losing your tuition payments, all that, then there might be some change, and maybe then some parents would open their eyes and say, wait a minute, what are you doing with my money? Quickly, as an update from NPR that I mentioned yesterday, Senator Ted Cruz went after National Public Radio, and he used to speak out on this a long time ago. This is an issue that comes up every couple of years, NPR and PBS, should they lose their funding? And conservatives have wanted it for a long time, but it finally took someone like Donald Trump to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. So speaking with Senator Maria Cantwell, who made remarks against the president's May 2nd executive order to cease federal funding for NPR and PBS, Cruz offered the rest of the story. Quote, the Communications Act requires public media entities like NPR to strictly adhere to objectivity and balance in all programs or series of programs on a controversial nature. Unfortunately, NPR does not. Last Congress, I put out a detailed report how NPR took millions in earmarked donations from left-wing megadonors for very specific coverage. After receiving those donations, NPR churned out content precisely mirroring its donors' agendas. Likewise, the congressionally chartered independent television service paid for documentaries like Racist Trees to appear on PBS. Referring to Uri Berliner, the veteran former NPR editor who resigned After being suspended without pay for publishing an essay calling out the left-wing bias, Cruz went on to claim that NPR CEO Catherine Maurer continues to deny that NPR has a serious story selection problem, even when senior editors are resigning because the bias is so overwhelming. The senator continued on to call out Maurer's display of left-wing bias on her own social media pages, as we mentioned on yesterday's program. Ted Cruz saying NPR continues to have a dedicated news desk for climate and for race, both of which are propped up by liberal megadonors. This is the same woman who in January of 2020, months before the death of George Floyd, tweeted, "Yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin, an unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day." I think it's more than time for some accountability at NPR. The senator expanded on multiple instances of NPR's leftist journalism, including when the outlet issued an apology in 2019 for calling illegal immigrants illegal. Quote, they posted, "Sorry, that was a mistake. NPR policy is not to characterize people as illegal." Now, by the way, in federal law, an illegal alien is referred to as an illegal alien. This is in the United States Code. Cruz jabbed. In another instance of the publicly funded outlet's insane anti-American bias brought up by Cruz, the publisher issued a wacky editor's note on a July 2021 article containing the Declaration of Independence, saying it, quote, contains offensive language about Native Americans, including a racial slur. So putting them on call, and it's long overdue, this call. Also, on the media front, senators are urging Paramount to continue their fight against Trump because there is that lawsuit, and 60 Minutes had that hit piece calling Trump a mob boss on Sunday, not having learned their lesson. As we know, they selectively edited Kamala Harris's interview. A group of senators led by Bernie Sanders is urging media conglomerate Paramount Global to not settle a lawsuit against President Trump. Rewarding Trump with tens of millions of dollars for filing this bogus lawsuit will not cause him to back down on his war against the media and a free press. It will only embolden him to shake down, extort, and silence CBS and other media outlets that have the courage to report about issues that Trump may not like. So I guess it takes courage to selectively edit an interview with Kamala Harris to make her sound better right before the election. I guess having only one-sided interviews that are anti-Trump, as we saw on Sunday, 60 Minute, and calling him a mob boss. I guess that is what courage looks like to Bernie Sanders and those on the left. So we'll see if they settle. There's been a lot of talks and chatter about that in the media world, but that was just another quick update. Some comments coming in, some waves coming in. I'm running late. I'm going to tell you, speaking of the news, I'm going to tell you about the big scandal of the Trump administration today. Then we're going to give you an update on Newark and the airport situation, then the New York State budget. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Don't miss MLB season's New York Mets games. Big Fox and Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games for free on WJKP. No extra subscriptions needed. Watch live over the air. Brought to you by Big Fox.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Catch Twin Tiers local news and weather by visiting WYDCTV.com. We've got daily and weekly weather forecast, question of the day, things to do, and more. WYDCTV.com, your website for everything Twin Tiers local.
The Bix website is
is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from a viewer. Do you have an opinion on the Trump tariffs? Bernie Sanders agrees with targeted tariffs, but not his policy. I wonder exactly what he means by policy. Perhaps he's referring to Doge. Well, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit because we do have a couple Bernie Sanders things and a couple Democrat things. But since you brought this up, I want to reference exactly what you are referring to. Here we go. So this was on Fox News Channel's special report. Senator Bernie Sanders said that there are some Democrats who are now abandoning progressive views on tariffs, and he favors selective tariffs, not the broad ones put forward by President Trump. So he agrees with the tariffs, but because Trump is doing them, he has to find a way to nitpick and not support the ones that Trump is doing. It's the way I read this. Brett Baer said, you have the tariff policy. You have this tariff policy from President Trump. It's really interesting that some Democrats have now kind of abandoned the pro-progressive thing that they had before, and they're agreeing with the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Did you see that? So Sanders said, yeah, this is what I think. The idea is say, oh, we believe in unfettered free trade, no tariffs. And some Democrats are saying that. I think that's nonsense. The idea that you will arbitrarily one day come up with tariffs on every country on earth for no particular reason, which is going to raise prices in this country, that's also absurd. Not only did I vote against NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China, I helped lead the effort against those. Those were disastrous trade agreements written by corporate America, designed to allow corporations to shut down in America, move to China, move to Mexico, and hire people there as starvation wages. Very bad policy. So I believe in selective tariffs to protect American workers. But the broad tariff proposal that Trump put forth, this is not the way to proceed. So it seems to me as if it's more of a kind of nitpick scenario because Trump, he can't be seen supporting Trump's tariffs. That's what it seems to me. He wants more selective tariffs. So I guess his argument is he doesn't like the broad brush that Trump is using. He wants more of a fine-tooth comb. Okay. Thank you for that question. But as for my opinion on tariffs, I'm kind of a wait-and-see person. I don't have a strong opinion on it because I'm by far no expert on tariffs. But I would love, as so many people on this program have said, I would love to see American manufacturing back, great American jobs. So if that's what the tariffs lead to, and I believe they will, then we are sitting pretty, as they say. Okay, here is, I guess, the scandal of the day. This was a more prevalent thing in his first term, though it is very prevalent this term. But remember, there's always some huge scandal every single day. Well, now Trump is so fast with his executive orders and getting his agenda accomplished that really the media doesn't have time, like the old days, to harp on Russia and these type of things. They're trying to play catch up constantly. This seems kind of reminiscent of something we would have saw in the first term. This is from the Daily News, the far left Daily News. Trump's New Jersey golf courses can still serve liquor even though he's a felon. Liquor is still allowed at President Donald Trump's New Jersey golf courses, despite a state law barring felons from serving and profiting from the sale of alcohol. The State Divisions of Alcohol Beverage Control, or ABC, initially opted against renewing liquor licenses for the Trump National Golf Clubs in Bedminster and Colts Neck, after a New York jury convicted the president in May of 2024 on 34 felony counts. And then they go give the story of that. Instead, the clubs were granted temporary 90-day permits, and a hearing was scheduled on the matter for after the president's sentencing. But Trump's sentencing was repeatedly delayed, forcing the ABC to postpone and extend the temporary licenses. Then, in July of this year, or of last year, the U.S. Supreme Court expanded the scope of presidential immunity, and Trump was granted an unconditional discharge in January. Trump's golf courses at the time were still operating under temporary permits, which were set to expire in April, before they were once again extended. They are now set to expire on June 30th. Kimberly Benza, a Trump Organization spokesperson, said, "We fully expect that the liquor permits will be extended and there will be no interruption of service to our valued members and guests." All right. There is that keeping you up at night. The Trump's New Jersey golf courses can still serve liquor even though he's a felon. The Daily News felt that that was worth going to print with. Okay. Do I have time for this? All right. Well, this is kind of a New York State issue, but then we're going to get to the budget. So I'm looking at the time, and I don't want to run too late. Oh, if you are just joining us, if you're just waking up, there's the courting whistle if you can hear it in the background. In the next hour, we got a very special guest. After attending the Kyle Petty charity ride across America yesterday, which was a fun time. And if anybody went out there, please send your pictures. Tell us how much fun you had. I'd love to hear your stories, your autographs, those type of things. But I did have a moment to ask a couple questions, 2 questions, of Heisman Trophy winner, football legend, former Senate candidate, Herschel Walker. So Herschel Walker will kind of technically be joining us in the next hour. I think you're going to enjoy that. It's not our typical fashion of being in studio. It looks like a press scrub, as they're called, where there's a bunch of people asking questions, not at the same time. Not like a presidential press conference, but we were all very polite, all the different stations. But I did get to ask 2 questions. So we'll play that for you in the next hour. I'm really looking forward to it, to say that we had Herschel Walker on Frankly Speaking. But let's take that short break, and we'll get right back into it after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. News on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
As always, we thank Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us that amazing view of Corning, specifically Market Street. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on said Market Street. Okay, yesterday, Congressman Nick Langworthy spoke with Fox News Digital. Now, if you're not familiar, obviously he's our congressman. I know you're familiar with that, but he's also the chairman of the House's Aviation Safety Caucus. And obviously that is a major issue lately, specifically with what's happening in Newark. He told Fox that the former administration's marquee bill, Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill, was among several missed opportunities to fund a revamp of the ATC system, or air traffic control system. Quote, and this again, Representative Langworthy, that was before I came to Congress, but you had just mistaken priorities in that day. All this DEI policy, DEI staffing, that all got baked into the cake. They could have taken that money and spent it on real modernization of what is critical infrastructure in this country. We had the longest period of incident-free aviation in this country's history, where we didn't have a commercial air crash from the time the crash happened in Buffalo in my district back to 2009 to just this year and what happened at Ronald Reagan Airport. And it was avoidable. It's what they spent the money on. I mean, there's infrastructure projects. One's in my backyard, where they want to bury and tunnel over our main artery in the town because it's going to reunite a community somehow. Aviation is infrastructure. It's transportation. It should have been spent then. Instead, they did all this social engineering with money and didn't focus on what has been a glaring problem for the federal government for many years: modernizing our aviation infrastructure. During visits with air traffic controllers in the 23rd Congressional District, Langworthy said the message was simple but critical. We need more bodies. We should be promoting this to young people that want to look at a career service in the government. And it comes with a very competitive salary. But it's a tough job and a lot of hours. And, there's always going to be stress involved. But we have to prioritize it and not just take it for granted. I will absolutely lead the fight for Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and the President on their plan to modernize our aircraft. When Secretary Duffy and the President roll this out at a spending priority, we have to front load this process. We have to get them the resources that they need to get this done, because the flying public, everyone's lives hang in the balance on this. So thank you to Fox for sending that along, and Congressman Langworthy for giving us an update, as that is such a major story. Okay, yesterday, the New York State Legislature began passing over a month late, state budget, totaling $254 billion. That's an increase of $12.3 billion. The protracted closed-door negotiations between Governor Hochul and the leaders of the Democrat majorities of the Senate and Assembly increased the spending plan by $2.3 billion from what Hochul had originally proposed back in January. Hochul telling reporters, working with our partners in the legislature, we've reached an agreement to pass a balanced, fiscally responsible budget. Good things take time, and this budget is going to make a real difference for New York families. Good things take time. Well, it's as it's always said about the budget. Not only is it late, it's not good either. Budget bills expect to be voted on later this week. I think the first early voting started yesterday. Plans to provide tax rebate checks of $400 for families or $200 for individuals. We know about that. That somehow is a part of Hochul's affordability agenda, which is laughable. I'm not going to go through each individual thing, but we are going to take a quick look at it coming up. I do have to take a short break. Look at all these waves. Look at this. If you are just joining us, we're going to be talking with, Herschel Walker in the next hour. We're looking forward to that. It was from yesterday's Kyle Petty charity ride across America. We're going to learn why he got involved, and maybe another question that we'll say is off topic. But the $254 billion New York State budget has been revealed and started to go up for vote yesterday. And as the New York Post reports it, it's Albany at its cynical worst. We'll tell you about it when we come back, so stay with us. And please continue. Everybody's been having such great comments about their various school budgets that are being proposed. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, on your school budget in particular, from wherever you are located. Right now, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Seneca offers you breathtaking views, gorgeous waterfalls, award-winning wine, and so much more. Your experience awaits you. Come experience Seneca Lake.
Don't miss MLB season's New York Mets games. Big Fox and Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games for free on WJKP. No extra subscriptions needed. Watch live over the air. Brought to you by Big Fox.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
When I'm in Elmira and Corning, I watch
As always, we thank Boss Security for providing the Frankly Speaking roof cam. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So the bulk of the mammoth $254 billion state budget deal was unveiled yesterday with some last-minute self-serving quietly slipped in to the batter. Now, you may have heard how they snuck in language that would make you and I, the taxpayer, pay for Letitia James' legal bill. Letitia James in that fight with Trump. Well, not with Trump, with the DOJ. We're going to talk about that more in depth. I'm just giving you kind of a quick overview of what we're going to start the next hour with. The spending plan documents, which have been nicknamed through the years the Big Ugly, provide a last-minute, warts-and-all look at much-anticipated legislation focused on so many New York State issues. But this is the biggest fear when we talk with, whether it's Assemblyman Phil Palmisano or Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski or Sheriff Allard, we're always concerned, and we express our concern, we don't know what is going to be put forward in the Big Ugly. Now, Hochul yesterday ran a victory lap after a deal to revamp the state's discovery law, a move to combat a slew of criminal cases that have been getting dismissed on technicalities. The tweaks caused a weeks-long impasse on the overall budget deal. She said, I said all along I would hold up a $250 billion budget on this issue. Now, they do believe that the final price tag on the budget will be about $254 billion, so over $250 billion. Involuntary commitment standards, the rules by which severely mentally ill people can be forced into psychiatric care against their will be expanded and loosened under the agreement. Hochul and state lawmakers reached a deal after months of backroom talks, prompted in part by violence in the subways, random attacks on the city streets, and Mayor Eric Adams using his bully pulpit to push for changes to involuntary commitment rules. The budget was due April 1st, but it went far over deadline, as we know. Senator Jim Skoufis, Democrat from Orange County, said, I'm sick and tired of one individual, the governor, superseding the will of up to 213 duly elected senators and assembly members. The current operating procedure is nothing short of authoritarian. Albany's single-party Democrat rule also let Hochul, State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, and State Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins sign off on a slew of self-serving deals for their party faithful. The state budget package wraps in measures to help incumbents get more money from the taxpayers with a campaign financing system. We talked about that the other day on the program. Yes, you are paying for campaigns of candidates that you may despise. It'll allow lawmakers to keep collecting salaries from side jobs and assist Hochul in warding off a challenge from her estranged lieutenant governor. John Caney, executive director of Reinvent Albany, said, all in all, it's a generally bad Albany at its cynical worst. And we have nothing positive to say about this. And how they've done this just undermines that these are self-serving, or underlines that these are self-serving changes for Democrat incumbents. And the sad thing is we knew when they first started the campaign financing. Phil Palmisano was screaming it from the rooftops. When they first started the taxpayer-funded campaigns, that it would be corrupted and misused and cause more scandals, cause more questionable financial moves, and just overall cost you, the taxpayer, a lot more. And that's exactly what has happened. It's been growing and growing and growing. So now it's helping essentially Democrat incumbents is what the ultimate goal was. The budget also includes a highly controversial measure pushed by Orthodox Jewish communities that make it easier to demonstrate compliance with educational standards in their religious schools. All right, we've got a lot more on the New York State budget, but this hour's through. Look at all these waves, folks. We're going crazy this morning. They just keep coming in. It's almost like it's on a loop. When we come back, we're going to talk about the New York State budget, but we also, as I said, if you're just joining us, we're going to hear from none other than Herschel Walker himself in the next hour. So you won't want to miss that. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, hour number 2. Mere moments away.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub. Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
It's the 25th Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th.
Get yours at Current Power Sports in Pine City, New York and Wellsboro, Pennsylvania.
Football's newest show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and we are getting dangerously close to a wave record here. I'm trying to think what the wave record was. I think one time we hit like 40. Well, no, was it 42? I don't remember. It might have been actually upwards of 45 because I think no, it was how many. No one cares. I should have. Sorry, it was how many felonies that Trump was charged with in that lawfare. I think we hit that number one time, and I'm not sure if we've broken it since. But we may break a new record with waves. And I know that many of you tuning in are saying, why am I listening to this? Great question, but thank you for joining us. And I know why you're joining us, because coming up in just a few moments, we are going to hear from Herschel Walker. Very excited for that. Of course, you know, close friends with Donald Trump, ran for Senate, but of course, a football legend. So we're going to play that here in just a little bit. Back to the New York State budget. Albany, as I mentioned, snuck in all that language that benefits when it comes to campaign finances paid for by you and I to benefit incumbents, benefit Democrats overall. Then we heard, and this broke pretty early yesterday, that there was language in there that would put you and I on the hook, the New York taxpayers on the hook to pay for Letitia James's legal bills if she is probed by the Trump administration. Now you're saying, how can that be? Because what is being alleged has nothing to do with her official capacity. They did the same thing essentially with Cuomo. If you recall, we were on the hook. What did that end up costing us? About $60 million, something like that. $60 million to pay for his legal bills fighting those sexual harassment claims. Taxpayers could be footing the legal bills for New York Attorney General Letitia James during the Justice Department's probe into her alleged fraudulent real estate dealings. New York's operations budget bill includes specific language that indicates certain state officials could tap into a $10 million fund to cover, quote, any reasonable attorney fees and expenses incurred as part of the Trump administration-led probe tied to their state-based employment. So they've created a kind of a slush fund that if the Trump administration believes you were involved in some type of wrongdoing and they go after you, rightfully go after you, there is a slush fund essentially that you can draw from. Multiple sources told the New York Post that the language in the bill, which was made public eventually, would apply to James's looming legal fight. It would also cover other state employees whom the Trump administration considers going after, according to the sources. While the bill language does not mention James by name, the relevant section indicates state employees could be covered if the legally compulsive process was initiated by the U.S. government after January 1st, 2025. James, who infamously declared that no one is above the law when she was prosecuting former President Trump, was hit with a DOJ criminal referral for instances of alleged mortgage fraud last month. The bill would cover those who obtained representation by private counsel in response to any request, summons, command, subpoena, warrant, investigative interview, or document request, audit, or legally compulsive process initiated after January 1st, 2025 by the United States government, and in which the employee was or is involved as a result of the employee's New York State employment or duties. James is apparently planning to rely on both state funds and private legal defense funds. The Attorney General's office saying yesterday Donald Trump promised a vicious revenge tour when he ran in 2024, and he's put Attorney General James at the top of his list, and we're ready to respond to those attacks. Now, as the Post editorial board said, state lawmakers have quietly tucked that measure about Letitia James into the budget bill. The $10 million criminal defense slush fund would seemingly cover any state employee facing any federal legally compulsive process who can claim the federal probe as a result of the employee's New York State employment or duties. Insiders are clear that it would cover James, even though nothing official links her day job work to the Federal Housing Finance Agency's criminal referral over her private real estate affairs. But I think they'll make the argument that it was done because of her, that she's being looked into because of the lawfare that she used against Trump. I think that will be the argument. There's absolutely no reason you and I, the taxpayer, should have to bail out Letitia James. If she didn't do anything wrong, as she claims, then the case should be easily dismissed. And if there is a case, well, didn't she say that no one is above the law? Doesn't that mean no one is above legal bills? Bailing out James isn't just offensive on its own. The bill is so broad that it would cover just about any federal investigation of anyone who cashes a state paycheck, which is remarkable since most New York political corruption convictions come from federal charges and have for decades. That is, the legislature here isn't just helping out James, it's helping future lawmakers and other state officials caught with their hands in the proverbial cookie jar. Added irony, back when ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo sued to make state taxpayers fund his defense against sex harassment suits, Attorney General James was caustic in condemning it. So she was against it then, but now that it goes to benefit her, all for it. It's hunky-dory. James will argue that the case against her is political, but that's rich after how political her legal pursuit of Trump was on charges that an appeals court is seriously considering throwing out. By the way, New York taxpayers paid for that case too. Yes, we funded that case, that lawfare case against the now President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. You paid for it, I paid for it. She wasted that taxpayer money. And again, I know I've said this on the program numerous times, but at the end of the day, I know Letitia James and Alvin Bragg look at themselves as heroes. I think if I were a Democrat, I would blame them. Not perhaps, I would have them in the list of why Donald Trump won the White House. That lawfare brought a lot of people over to his side saying, you know what, we're not going to stand by and have the justice system corrupted to try to keep someone off the ballot who I may not even support, but I am going to now because you, Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, aren't going to tell me what I can and cannot do when it comes to my vote. So she may look at herself as a hero, but she's right there towards the top of the list of one of the many reasons that Donald Trump won back the White House. Now, James has already established a private legal defense fund to fight possible federal charges, so it's not even clear that she needs taxpayers' bailout here, but it's going to help other corrupt politicians, and they know it. Does James want to show New Yorkers what she really stands for? Then she should side with taxpayers and tell lawmakers to forget about this bailout. Now, also on the budget, as I mentioned, Democrat State Senator Skoufis blasted the process, saying the governor seems to think she is a monarch of sorts. She seems very empowered with a budget that is 37 days late. And now Skoufis is a Democrat. Keep that in mind. The governor has demonstrated an inability to be competent. This again, Skoufis, Democrat, Democrat senator, saying the governor has demonstrated an inability to be competent, arguing that New Yorkers do care about a functioning government, budget deadlines, and all. The basis of that caring is they expect competency. She has an inability to be competent. He said, we're not going to be run over roughshod over and over and over again by this governor who increasingly views herself as a dictator. Now that we're wrapping up budget, this needs to be a focus, and hopefully we can build the support in the Senate to bring it up for first passage and begin this process. He sends a clear, unequivocal message to Hochul. Stop, we're going to say, messing around with us. I can't use the term that he put. Again, this is a Democrat, folks. He also hit the governor over her "we got it done" media appearances, which have been going on for over a week since Hochul announced a general agreement. It's insane. It's disrespectful to the people who've been working hard on this budget. While she's been doing her victory tour, pretending like the budget negotiations are done, meanwhile, you have staff who are sleeping in the Capitol overnight, continuing to negotiate around a $254 billion document. Now, Hochul's press secretary called that an embarrassing juvenile stunt from a camera-hungry clown. Senator Skoufis will just have to explain to his district why he opposes lower taxes and safer streets, and why he's against record school aid and against millions for parks and highways in his district. Good luck. So that's what they said in reference to Skoufis. But Skoufis saying she's incompetent, and he is a Democrat. And Hochul not happy with his statements. But a lot of self-serving perks in this budget deal, as we mentioned. Nothing positive to say about it. We gave that quote to you a little bit earlier on with John Caney. All in all, it's a general bad. Albany at its cynical worst. And we have nothing positive to say about this. And now how they've done this underlines that we are self-serving changes for Democrat incumbents. And again, this goes back to the, the privately or the taxpayer matched funds for campaigns. Originally, it was supposed to help smaller campaigns, and we knew that wasn't going to last. And of course, that's exactly what happened. It used to be that donations were matched up to $250. Now the limit has been raised to $1,050. So if I donate $1,050, it's matched something like, what is it? 6 times. Not that the full $1,050 isn't. But that original $250 is. I know this gets a little wonky. Just know at the end of the day, there are going to be candidates that you hate, that you do not support in any way, shape, or form in this state, that your hard-earned money is going to fund their campaign. Maybe it's even an incumbency. Now, Hochul is taking that victory lap. She's been doing this, again, not doing a great job. Very awkward at these kind of press conferences. Very awkward in many of her statements. We've said this for a long time on the program. She's just not up to the level that she has been kind of forced into with the resignation of Governor Cuomo. She's just not there. We saw that at the Democratic National Convention, and we've seen it numerous times since with her various speeches. But she was taking a victory lap yesterday on the discovery laws that led to a slew of criminal dismissals. She was at a Manhattan State Courthouse. I said all along I would hold up a $250 billion budget on this issue, and here's why. Behind all the legal jargon that some may not quite comprehend, there's real people's lives at stake here. You can't have violent criminals who hurt other human beings be able to walk free because of evidence that was irrelevant that might have been excluded. And that it was a major issue, but taking that victory lap. We've got a couple other kind of Republican update, New York State budget updates. Then we have some Republican updates, also some Democrat updates, and we're going to be talking with Herschel Walker here in just a moment. I see some comments coming in. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Oh, maybe not. I was preemptive there. There you go.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
This Big Fox and Coastal Television bring you 23 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer on WJKP. No Apple Plus subscription, no Fubo subscription, no MLB subscription required. We have the schedule for all of our Mets games on WYDCTV.com. Don't miss May 16th, Mets versus Yankees, and June 2nd, Mets versus Dodgers. Brought to the Twin Tiers by Big Fox.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street. According to a couple comments from viewers, the New York State budget is no surprise. You can't trust people to handle our money if they can't even tell time. Why do they wonder what this got a typo in it? They wonder why people are moving out. They don't care. You're right. They don't care. But the sad thing is, as people move out, those of us that stay have to continue to foot the bill, even for those that have left, because they're not cutting back on services. They're not cutting back on spending. So it's a very troubling situation, as we all know. Okay. Comment from a different viewer. Funding Letitia James with my tax dollars is more nauseating to me than Cuomo running for mayor of New York City. And believe me, that is saying something. Absolutely outrageous. I know. That is so maddening that they put this in there. Again, no one's above the law. She said it. That if you did nothing wrong, this shouldn't even be an issue. And now we have to pay for this. We had to pay for the lawfare against Trump in the first place brought on by Letitia James. And now we have to pay for her legal defense on something that has nothing to do whatsoever with her job. But they're trying to twist it into it's because of her job. But it has to do with her private life and her mortgages. So yes, I understand. Absolutely outrageous. By the way, this is disappointing, though. It is a wonky topic. It may affect some of you if you have run for elected office. A New York State appeals court has ruled the new state law that will move many local elections to line up with state and federal elections in even-numbered years is constitutional, reversing a lower court judge's decision last fall. The court on Wednesday ruled against Republican-led challenges to the law in that it conflicts individual county charters. 20 New York counties are chartered, meaning they have locally drafted and approved laws outlining the structure and authorities of county government. Here's why this is a problem. We had Tanya from Gibson write in, okay? We'll use Gibson. She wrote it at the beginning of the show. So let's say Gibson, just for argument's sake. Say you're running for Gibson Town Board. I don't know if there is a Gibson Town Board, but let's say there is. Gibson Town Board, you're running, and it's a pretty big race. It's you, maybe a couple challengers. You're thinking, how much money do I want to dump into this? How do I get my name out there? How can I get attention for my campaign? It's hard enough now, and that's why we're so proud on this program to have so many guests running for local office, because this is a heavy local year. So it's already very tough, and they don't have competition with federal elections, statewide elections. So now imagine that person is running in Gibson, and they're already struggling, and they can't find an outlet to get their message out there, and now they have to compete with the race for assembly, the race for state senate, the race for president. Now you say, well, you're going to get no attention, right? There's already very little local attention on local races. That's why, again, we've taken up that mantle and are very proud of it, where we try to have as many local candidates on as possible so that you can learn about who you vote for and be the most educated when you go into the voting booth. That's why we've made that a goal. But add on top of not being able to get your message out there because it's being drowned out by the assembly races, the state senate races, the presidential, the congressional, whatever. Now, if you know advertising, you wouldn't even be able to afford the advertising. You couldn't even pay to get your name out at that point because the rates and the competition, specifically competition because the rates are all the same, but the competition, imagine that. It's doing everything it can to harm the people running for local office at a time when local municipalities, cities, etc., are struggling to even get people to serve on their boards, to serve on their councils. So at a time when people, and we've had instances in Steuben County, in certain small townships that don't have a full board, are looking for members to serve. So now you're saying if you want to run, you have essentially no way to get your name out there because you are going to be drowned out by Assembly, Senate, Congress, state senator, United States senator, and even the presidential race. So but that was upheld, or I guess you could say reversed the lower ruling by the appeals court. I hope this continues. I hope there is still more of a fight. Now, their argument is that it'll boost local turnout, but that's not the case. It's not. The pros don't outweigh the cons because more people will be voting on you because they are going to vote for president or senator or whatever, but they're going to know less about you. The challengers have the option to appeal to the state's highest court, and here's hoping that they ultimately do. Now, when we come back, this is technically still a New York State issue because we talked yesterday, and again, I keep saying this, there's people watching the program in the higher-ups because there's a piece mirroring, if you will, in the New York Post about what we had talked about yesterday with Trump endorsing Mike Lawler for Congress, not governor, trying to signal, in a way, stay out of the governor's race, or at least wait until Elise Stefanik makes her decision. We'll talk about that in a moment, and we'll read your comments. But coming up next, during the Steuben County Office for the Aging segment of our program, we are going to talk with none other than former Senate candidate, Heisman Trophy winner, football great, Herschel Walker. That's coming up in the next segment, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's spring, and Bath Planet has one question for you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Bath Planet is excited to announce the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. In the past 2 years, we have given away 4 brand new Dream Baths, and now it's your turn. The winner will be able to design their own bath or shower, complete with hundreds of color and pattern options, multiple shelf styles, and matching safety features. It's the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
And something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Shall Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts?
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the Battle of Twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. We have had a lot of waves coming in this morning, too. Thank you for that. And coming up in just a second, Herschel Walker, as I have been promoting all morning long. Okay. Comment from the first viewer. It seems to me unconstitutional that the state can use our money to fund candidates. How is this legal? I think we need to sue the state over this. Is there anyone in your audience who can explain the legality of it? Well, I know it was passed into law. I believe at the time, and this has actually been in effect for quite some time, I believe it was challenged in the courts and allowed to stand. And I will talk next time we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, because he was a champion against this. He's been talking about this for years, because it started as kind of one of those whisper, they're looking to pass this, and as is typical in Albany, that gained momentum. And then eventually, so we talked about it for years before it actually was enacted. Then it was enacted, and it was exactly filled with the problems that we were concerned with from the early days, because it keeps changing and keep changing, and it benefits incumbents. It benefits the Democrats in general in this way. And again, the money keeps growing, so you're paying more and more. And if you're not familiar with taxpayer-funded campaigns, what happens is, and actually former Governor Andrew Cuomo messed up in his race for mayor and didn't get the paperwork in on time or correctly, so he lost millions in taxpayer funding. But anyway, there's some type of, I don't know if algorithm is the right word, but there's what happens is, for every $250, so if I donate to your campaign $250, that is matched by taxpayers, and I can't remember if it's 5-to-1 or 6-to-1. I'll look that up in the next segment. But you, the taxpayer, are funding, let's say there's a candidate that you can't stand, completely against every one of your beliefs. You are still helping to fund their campaigns, even if you are so opposed that it makes you outraged. I'm trying to find the exact number and talk to you at the same time. But so anyway, so here we go. Program, so if you get $250 or less, that is matched. Then that originally was set at $250. Now with this new bill, it's up to $1,050. But if I donate $1,050 to you, the match is only still at $250. But see, the cutoff was $250. So if I gave you $251, none of it was matched. But now, if I give you $1,050, $250 is matched. So again, this is just helping incumbents. But what they had always claimed was that this was going to help get more small donors and not favor the big donors. Quite the opposite. It hasn't done that at all, and that's why they're trying to change it. But it is it's 6-to-1. There we go. Donors giving $250 or less to a given candidate in an election cycle can have their money matched. In Senate and Assembly elections, the smallest donations receive the highest matching rate. So here we go. I know it's a little wonky, folks. The system matches contributions of $50 or less at a rate of $12 to 1. So for $50, that's 12 to 1 that you will, as a taxpayer, be on the hook for. Then, if it's 200, a slightly lower ratio as contributions grow to 250. For statewide races, small donations are matched 6-to-1. So if it's a statewide race, 6-to-1. Let's just put it at that number. So yes, if you raise $250, that is matched 6-to-1 by you, the taxpayer. So I don't know how it's legal. I hope that wasn't too wonky to try to explain, but it is. A lot of people are outraged over it. Ken writes in, James, legal expenses being paid by the state is no surprise. The Dems' message is, and has been clear for many years, toe the party line and do as much damage to Trump and the Republicans as you can, by any means open to you, and you will be protected. Go against the party and you will be ostracized and punished in the same way the Democrats punished Trump and the Republicans. Thank you very much, Ken. I agree. And finally, a comment from a viewer, and this is very nice. Enjoy your program, and a wave. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so as promised, yesterday, and if you missed it, you missed a great one. Yesterday was the Kyle Petty charity ride across America that was right here in Corning at the Radisson. We had talked with Kyle Petty last week to promote the event, and then yesterday was the actual event. Me and some of the crew here at Big Fox, Dante, who we talked to earlier in the week, Hallie, others, joined us for the event. Here's actually some photos that we took of the event. There's me asking Herschel Walker a question and doing my best reporter there. There is Herschel Walker himself. And then we have the whole crew and a fun-loving guy in the background waving to us. And that was us at yesterday's event. So here we go. It's not an in-studio interview, but I did have an opportunity to ask Herschel Walker, former Senate candidate, good friends with Donald Trump, and of course, football legend. I asked him at first why he got involved with the Kyle Petty charity ride across America.
Well, I love cars, I love motorcycles, and I heard they had this ride across America. And I was like, man, what are you doing with a ride across America? They said it's for Victory Junction. And I got an opportunity to learn what Victory Junction was. And I said, Coach Landry used to say, if you take something out of society, put something back in. This is an opportunity for me to help chronically ill kids with illness that may have been with their parents 24/7. And I saw an opportunity where those kids can go to camp, the parents can go and relax a little bit, and the Petty family do an incredible job at Victory Junction, giving them a lot of fun. And I said, all I have to do is ride a motorcycle. So I started with them about 19 years ago, and I don't think I missed a year. So I've been with them for about 19 years.
How big of an honor was it to be asked to be ambassador to the Bahamas?
That was a big honor. That was a big honor. President Trump and I have known each other since 1984. And for him to ask me, it was a huge honor. I'm still going through confirmation. So I got to get through confirmation, get that done, and get down there and see if I can do some work, if I can get through it.
So thank you to Herschel Walker for being our guest this morning during the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. I had to sneak in a political question. Couldn't all be about the charity, but it is the focus, an amazing charity. So thank you to Herschel Walker for being on Frankly Speaking this morning. Find out more, by the way, at KylePettyCharityRide.com. And for those of you who attended, like Scott, who texted in earlier, we had such a nice conversation. Thank you, Scott, for coming up and talking with me yesterday at the event. But if you went to the event and you'd like to send in some pictures, I'd love to see them, or tell us the fun time that you had. Okay, so we were talking about New York State, and some people have been asking me about Elise Stefanik, and is she going to run? Isn't she going to run? And yesterday, as I mentioned on the program, and now Carl Campanelli echoing, I'm not suggesting he was listening to the program, but I'm just saying, echoing much later in the day than when I said it, that with Trump backing Lawler's reelection to Congress, it has increased that talk of Elise Stefanik running for governor. Now, Mike Lawler, and we're going to talk about him in a moment, Mike Lawler has been, it's kind of like the worst kept secret, has been essentially campaigning for governor for probably a year now. But with Trump's backing of Lawler to stay put in the House, speculation has grown about a path for Stefanik to get the GOP nomination for governor next year. GOP sources also said Trump, whose approval has sunk as he has reached the 100-day mark, is simply being mindful that Republicans got wiped out in the 2018 midterm elections during his prior term as president. That sounds like a typical New York GOP person's reaction because he doesn't have to endorse Lawler this far out. So to suggest that he's doing this because he's concerned about the House, how does an endorsement in April of 2025, how does that help Lawler secure re-election in reality? Why is that showing a weakness in the midterms or something? That sounds like a typical Republican, New York Republican attitude. I would even speculate in my head, but not in public, about who that could have been. We read the quote to you yesterday that Trump made while endorsing Lawler. He also endorsed the re-election of GOP Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, who is on the ballot this fall. Blakeman also considering running for governor. Stefanik reposted Trump's endorsement of Lawler. So again, it's funny having that anonymous GOP source saying, no, it's just about the midterms. Lawler thanked Trump for his endorsement, but noted he will make a decision on whether to run for governor in the coming weeks. Congressman Lawler is grateful for the president's support and appreciates his commitment towards addressing issues important to New York, including lifting the cap on salt, combating anti-Semitism, securing the border, and growing the economy. As Congressman Lawler has said repeatedly, he will make a decision on running for governor in June. I'm making the argument, folks, and I'm glad that he said that about June. It's still too late. Whatever, if at the end of the day the smoke clears and it is Lawler, that's fine, whatever. But why wait till June? Lee Zeldin did such a remarkable job against Hochul, did a great job, and he had declared in April. Why do you wait those extra 2 months? That's one problem we've always had as Republicans, because there's just not the name recognition. You have to be pretty into politics to know who Mike Lawler is, or of course, if you're in that district that he represents, you know him. But still, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Why wait till June? But as this piece states, with that endorsement, if we're being truthful, not listening to that one GOP person, if we're being truthful, this was Trump saying, not about the midterms, it was saying, hey, Blakeman, Lawler, wait to see what Elise does. So one GOP official said, what important here is the president wants Mike Lawler to run for a seat that is difficult to hold on to. It is easier for a Republican to hold on to Elise's seat if she runs for governor. So they're thinking a few moves ahead, saying, no, this is just about getting more seats in the House. No, I think it's been crystal clear that Donald Trump likes Elise Stefanik, that she does a good job. She's an effective voice for the Republicans. So he sees a real opportunity, because she has more name recognition than Lee Zeldin did, that she has a real opportunity to be governor of New York State. The Hochul-led state Democrat Party issued a statement saying Donald Trump has confirmed that the New York GOP primary for governor is all about him and his toxic agenda. No matter who stumbles out of the GOP primary, Trump's meddling guarantees that any GOP nominee will be tied to his rising costs, his sinking economy, and his failed agenda, no matter how hard they try to run from it. Am I confused? Has it been only a little over 100 days? I mean, where was this talk during the 4 years of the Biden administration about a sinking economy, a failed agenda, et cetera, et cetera? So this is, wow. Anyway, take that however you want. But one other thing about Mike Lawler, and just read into this whatever you want, but it is newsworthy. Some Republican lawmakers have signaled opposition to including provisions defunding Planned Parenthood and that sweeping legislation of Trump's big, beautiful bill. So they are opposed to defunding Planned Parenthood. Those GOP lawmakers, Representatives Mike Lawler, who we had just mentioned, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Jen Kiggins. They were among the lawmakers that voiced opposition to Planned Parenthood cuts during a closed-door meeting that included House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. I think there's other policy areas that we need to focus on, Fitzpatrick said, noting that he planned to bring up the rumblings around cuts targeting abortion providers. So Mike Lawler signaling that he does not want cuts to Planned Parenthood. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. So much more to talk about. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News. When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Enjoy a taste of the Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
Dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC. Or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national...
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. One last thing about Elise Stefanik. There's a piece from Semaphore that says that Stefanik is expected to meet with Donald Trump later this month, according to 3 people familiar with the planning, to talk about a potential run for governor. And 2 of those people also confirmed that Stefanik has repaired her relationship with House Speaker Mike Johnson, with whom she needed to work closely with if she decides to pass up a gubernatorial bid to stay on Capitol Hill. Because there are people that have been reporting, and I don't know if I accept this premise, but people that are reporting that Elise Stefanik kind of blames Mike Johnson for her not getting that UN job, the ambassador to the UN, because he needed her, in his mind, in the House. I don't know if that's maybe a little overhyped. They're looking for some palace intrigue. But I think it's a very wise idea for her to meet with Donald Trump about this run, not just because of the technicalities about midterms and things like that and what he'd be most interested in. But if you recall, and I mentioned, very extremely proud of this, and I still don't ask me how I was a part of it, but I was a part of the group that met at Trump Towers with Donald Trump, pre-President Trump, to try to convince him to run for governor because of his name recognition. And the reason why I say it's good for her to meet with him, because the questions he asked, the thoughtful questions he asked all of us of why we wanted him to run for governor, and looking at the numbers, it was very insightful into how he works and how his brain kind of works. So I think talking with him about something he's almost been through. If there wasn't a primary challenger, he would have probably run for governor. I think many people would argue that New York's loss was America's gain when he decided not to run. His big thing was no primary. If there's no primary, I'll run. At the time, the powers that be in the Republican Party felt that Donald Trump was not a winner. They have since changed their attitude, by the way, but they believed he was not a winner, so they instantly tried to get a challenger, which was, at the time, Rob Astorino. I don't knock Rob Astorino for that. He wanted to run for governor anyway, and that wasn't going to affect his decision, but he was spurred on by the powers that be at that time, again, leading to the fact that Donald Trump didn't run. But why I find that interesting, when you look back at that time in history, that I believe is one of the reasons why Donald Trump endorsed Lawler for the House, because he understands a bloody primary helps no one in the Republican Party. So this piece says, Stefanik's efforts may not spare her fellow New York Republicans a messy primary if both she and Lawler try to run for governor. If that does happen, if Elise jumps in and Lawler still decides he's going to run and primary her, that shows that Lawler does not have the Republicans' best interest at heart. But we did just have that story about what I think would maybe signal that he's more of a moderate Republican, for lack of a better word, because he's opposed to Planned Parenthood cuts and the big, beautiful budget that Trump has, that is part of Trump's agenda. So the primary would be devastating to the chances of the Republicans. So perhaps that's why Trump got ahead of the curve. And again, that's all he ever wanted if he was going to run for governor. Representative Nicole Malatakas said, look, let's just let things work itself out for a little time. I think it'll be clear who the nominee should be without having to enter a primary situation. But I will argue that for whatever reason, Republicans do try to hurt themselves at the statewide level And I could very easily see a primary, which would be kind of the end of any potential chance for a Republican governor, because you spend so much time and effort blooding up your opponent and not the valuable time promoting yourself. Now, Representative Nick Langworthy told Semaphore that he advocated against the party's last gubernatorial primary and would take the same stance this time, because we have to focus and get on target for the general election. Should Stefanik and Lawler move toward a head-to-head, the state GOP would determine some of their fate during a February vote on a primary slate. Candidates will 25% automatically appear on the primary ballot, while the one to break 50% becomes the party's endorsed candidate. Despite Stefanik's lack of an official decision, her potential face-off with Lawler is even getting attention across the aisle. The competition would be exciting, said Representative Dan Goldman, a Democrat from New York. So your thoughts on that? Okay. We have a couple of, I know, maybe you can hear the corning whistle in the background, a couple of updates on the Democrat Party, and we do have a couple of last-minute things when it comes to the Trump administration. We've covered a lot this morning. Don't forget, first of all, thank you again to Herschel Walker for being on the program. I do want to I thank him, and I thank Kyle Petty, who was so gracious with his time last week, but also for that amazing Kyle Petty charity ride across America and that amazing event in Corning yesterday. Visit to find out more information or make a donation to KylePettyCharityRide.com. I want to remind you, on tomorrow's program, we'll be talking with Justin Eberlin. He is running for Steuben County Legislature, and that is in the district that includes Caton, the town of Corning, and Hornby. So if you or someone you know is in that district, make sure you tell them, make sure you yourself watch that interview tomorrow at 7:20. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Well, it's strained. It is? It's a repetitive motion injury. Do you do this a lot?
Well, I do give out a lot of checks. Now, what about this pain in my back?
Tender, huh? Do you play any contact sports?
Thank you.
Wow! That explains it. Stick to friendly nods for the next couple of weeks.
When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Twins' first prime-time local news. Catch weather, local and national news, events, and more with our anchors, Dante, Haley, and Ann. Find out what's happening in your community and more by watching Big Fox 10 p.m. News on W.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Get your last-minute questions in, because this show is moving quickly. Here's a couple comments from viewers. Thank you for getting the real news out to us. Well, thank you. That's so kind of you. Please let us know how we can all help stop Hochul. Well, we'll keep you updated as things unfold. Hopefully, we get some answers here very quickly, because here we are in May, and we don't know. Oh, hey, could I switch it back onto my camera? We don't know till May. It's past mid-May, and we don't know yet who's going to be our candidate. Next up, Mark writes, in my opinion, Hochul wants Republicans to leave the state. She makes Republicans so mad and upset her agenda and policies, they leave. And this makes more Democrat voters. Well, that's very much in line with what happened with, if you look at it, with Cuomo, when he said, basically conservatives aren't welcome here. And then Hochul echoing that statement, saying the same thing quite recently. So thank you very much for those comments. The New York Post editorial board had an interesting take on a story that we brought to you yesterday on this show. saying, what if America's two most famous Democrats tried to stage comebacks and absolutely nobody noticed? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris seem intent on finding out the answer. Joe has surfaced to give an interview to the BBC, as we mentioned yesterday, which speaks volumes really about where he's at. And I guess today he's going to be on some programming. Now this comes off the heels of a sad but funny effort to get people to cough up to $300,000 to hear him speak. If you wanted to have the former president speak at your event, $300,000. But basically what this piece boils down to, and I posed the question to you as well, is that because they are kind of trying to stage a comeback, that it shows that the Democrat Party has no bench, because really the only quote-unquote bench that they have, or at least they seem to be putting all their faith into, is kind of the AOC wing, which ironically is one of the reasons why the landslide victory for Trump in November occurred. But speaking of AOC, border czar Tom Homan did fire back at AOC. Tom Homan said to AOC, the tables have now turned after she taunted him at a town hall addressing the Trump administration's deportations. I take pleasure that I can live with her mind rent-free every day, but we all know exactly what she's doing. She's educating the worst of the worst on how do we evade law enforcement. But the tables have now turned. She's educating people how to get prosecuted because you have a final order. It is illegal to not comply with that order. It's a crime to take steps to not comply with ICE removal orders or not comply with ICE actions taken in custody. You can hinder your own removal that was ordered by the federal judge. I would like AOC to read Title 8, United States Code 1253, because it's starting tomorrow. So now the tables have turned. Speaking of AOC, we know that she has been a part of, her and Bernie, a part of the Fight the Oligarchy tour. We'll tell you about that in a moment, and then we're going to wrap things up. Get your last-minute questions in so I can read them to everyone before we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. So get them in now. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Catch Twin Tiers local news and weather by visiting WYDCTV.com. We've got daily and weekly weather forecast, question of the day, things to do, and more. WYDCTV.com, your website for everything Twin Tiers local.
This website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So there are so many topics to cover before we wrap up, but I want to get to these last couple of comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Wouldn't the three people deciding the budget, the New York State budget, the three people in the room were Albany's infamous for it, the three people deciding the budget fit the definition of oligarchy? Where's Crazy Bernie and Cortez? You're right. I mean, the definition is a small group of people having the control. So I think you're exactly right. That's kind of ironic. Thank you for that astute point. Speaking of fighting the oligarchy, did you see on Fox News Channel, Bernie Sanders was being interviewed yesterday. And you got to give him credit for going on Fox News and getting the tough questions that I think any politician deserves. Tough but fair. When you look at Republicans going on ABC, NBC, places like that, they are attacked. Same thing doesn't happen with Bernie, but he gets the questions he should be asked by the legacy media. Brett Baer was talking about Bernie Sanders using, and we talked about it on the program, a private jet. The irony of him flying a private jet to go to the Fight Oligarchy Tour. AOC taking first class, him, and sometimes both of them taking the private flight together, the private jet together. So Sanders responded, "When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at a national airport?" Brett Baer said, "No, it doesn't, but he's also not fighting the oligarchy." Sanders said, "No, you run a campaign and you do your 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. You think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United waiting while 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future." So the kind of smugness and arrogance of, what, you think I'm going to wait in line when I have a rally there? What about, let's put that aside. Let's say your time is precious, Bernie, and I believe it is. But what about the problems to the environment? So the irony of fighting the oligarchy while taking a private jet, you've got the whole rich factor there and the criticism that they have of rich. But you also want to talk about the health of the planet and how much you are contributing to that destruction. So no apologies. As simple as that. Looking at the time here, realizing we're just about out of time. Miranda Devine says that the Trump electoral, quote, kiss of death is just more Democrat wishful thinking. And this has been kind of a narrative they try to push for a long time, the Trump effect, suggesting that there's some type of negative implication if Trump endorses a candidate. It's a little bit of wishful thinking, is what Miranda Devine said. Now, Jasmine Crockett, who has been making a name for herself, really trying to be the face of the resistance, said that the GOP is running scared from Trump's big, beautiful bill. Yeah, I mean, they're running late and they're running scared. Listen, you either are going to do what you need to do as it relates to the people that elected you, or you're going to go ahead and make sure that you bend the knee to your king. Right now, they don't know which one to do. I don't even know why it's debatable, but that's where we are. This week, we are actually supposed to have markups in 2 of the most important committees. Democrat Representative Dan Goldman said Trump's unconstitutional behavior is escalating. On the Republican side of things, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is making moves to block the state Republican Party, sounds like they have the same problem that we have in New York, from endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy. So the Ohio governor, Republican Mike DeWine, is trying to get the GOP party not to endorse Vivek Ramaswamy. And I think that does it for... a judge did say, this was breaking news late last night, judge says that the U.S. must allow migrants a chance to challenge in court any deportations to Libya. There we go. Thank you for all the comments, all the waves this morning. Thank you to Herschel Walker for being a guest on the program. I do appreciate it. It was nice to hear from him. Don't forget tomorrow, Justin Eberlin. He is running for Steuben County Legislature, Caton, Town of Corning, and Hornby. He will be on the program tomorrow. You'll find out all about his campaign and how it's going, and the same questions I asked his opponent, who was on last week. Again, going back to Herschel Walker, find out more about that amazing charity, Victory Junction, by going to KylePettyCharityRide.com. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow. I look forward to it already.
Don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.